Hello, good day. My name is Rocky Adiguna. I will be your host today. And we are now in the next episode of the research series where we will discuss about recent research from our guest. And now we are honored to have Professor Kimmo Alajoutsijärvi to come here. Thank you, Professor Kimmo. And the topic today is interesting because I think it has been little been discussed openly, and it's about business schools, grandiose branding, and ideological prisons, something that is a bit spicy. Later on we will discuss this a bit more. As we know, universities around the world, they try to advertise themselves, to present themselves as something that is superior, as the best school in the countries, or the best universities. But then maybe some of our faculty members have been uncomfortable seeing that kind of branding, and maybe seeing some kind of discrepancy of what is being advertised and what is actually practiced. And now we have Professor Kimmo will share his view regarding this kind of phenomenon, and later on we'll dig into his research as well. So now I will briefly introduce Professor Kimmo. Thank you. So Kimmo is currently a faculty member in the University of Agder, Norway, and he has been also a dean of a business school in Finland, and his work is revolving around business relationships, research on higher education, including business cycles, corporate ideologies, and he has been published in various top journals such as Academy of Management Learning and Education, Scandinavian Management Journal, and among others. So, Professor Kimmo, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And this is my observation. I want to see what's your view about this. And as a business school scholar or as a management scholar, we have been doing a lot of research for organizations, companies outside, in the field, but it has been very little research has been done on our own institution, on business schools. Do you share what the observation, or what do you think about that?
Well, I think that business schools are important institutions to study. By the way, business of business schools is also $1 billion business. So it has also monetary value in that sense. But that's not my point. My point is that when we study ourselves, meaning our institutions, we can understand much more about our teaching and research and our historical context and historical development. So that creates context to understand where we are now and probably where we are heading. It's I have had not many, but some colleagues, very good friends, who have said that what a stupid topic you have found, and how inward thinking that can lead. So that we should be open, and we should engage with corporations and so forth. I have studied quite a lot of corporations as well, I think. But as I said, it's I find very strange that type of arguments, and I have also seen even some kind of academic managers saying that you should have proper data.
Proper data.
This is not proper for business school studies.
Interesting.
But come on.
And do you think there is? Do you think this is like a blind spot in our research, that we have been looking outward but very rarely looking inward? Is it difficult for us to really looking at our own institution? Or are we afraid of criticizing?
I wouldn't say that anymore.
Okay.
15 years ago, yes.
Okay.
But now research on business schools is pretty popular, I would say. So that and for instance, AMLE has taken its one of the most important topics, business of business schools, and AMLE is 4-star journal. and many others, not only AMLE. I think that that 15 years ago, when I started to study business schools, as a former dean, it was relatively easy and natural. I would say that in that time, that was a very odd topic.
Okay.
But financial crisis 2008 made it more popular because business schools were criticized to be a part of the problem and not part of the solution. And for a reason, for a good reason. So it's that created opportunities to publish research on business schools.
Right, interesting. Yeah, so there were events in the history that requires us to, okay, maybe there is something wrong with business school and we need to research about it. Yeah. I said it's part of the problem, not a solution. Yeah. Okay.
I'm not sure how much we have learned from the financial crisis 2008, but in any case, it created for me and for my colleagues to opportunity to publish.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So fast forward to nowadays, and admittedly now in the business schools landscape, we are racing for accreditations, racing for presenting also as the best university or world-class universities. And that brings us to your research on grandiose branding. And to me, it's an interesting take on, let us say, the trends and what led you to do research on that grandiose branding as your topic of analysis.
Yeah, I cannot remember exactly by chance, by accident, but I have been interested in the business school industry or business of business schools, and there are about 15,000 business schools in the world. It's a very large sector in higher education, and it's also forerunner in good and bad in many issues in academia, and marketing of business schools has been one, and it's interesting so that we higher education institutions, universities, business schools, we want to be institutions of some kind of evidence-based knowledge, but still we have no problem to argue whatever concerning our own school.
Right.
So how does this fit with each other? And have you ever heard, 15,000 business schools?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard any business school or university by arguing to be average or just below average? But almost all of them world class, excellent, whatever. Exactly. But less in Nordic countries. In Nordic countries, we are little bit, let's say, more humble.
I see.
But many other.
Yeah. I mean, it requires in order to be acknowledged internationally, then. My observation is that universities tend to play the game of doing this world-class kind of discourse in order to be equal among others. Do you think this is like becoming like a game that university managers or business school managers need to play the game in order to be in that kind of party, or we can stand out, be doing something different?
Yeah, I think that if we think about 15,000 business schools, probably 1,000 of them, even less, can play the game fairly.
Okay.
So the rest of those institutions have to have shortcuts, and marketing, branding is one of those shortcuts. And these games like research output, accreditations, ranking positions, they're not easy to gain, but branding, marketing, I'm a former marketing professor, so so they can be. These are shortcuts to get into the game, get to the ticket to circus.
Without having actual practice in that regard.
Because students, for instance, prospective students may not know what is top school or what is convincing business school and so forth. So it's marketing.
Yeah. Interesting that you said that there were like maybe 1,000-ish can play the game fairly, but the remaining even less than that. The remaining, there is a chance they will do some, as you write in your paper, morally questionable or ethically questionable practices in this regard.
Especially, I would argue that that in developing countries or less developed countries, that is more possible than in very institutionalized countries like Nordic countries. It's and unregulated higher education systems are probably there. It's more possible than in institutions that operate under heavy regulations.
I see.
And there are, of course, many kinds of regulations, but I think that so that where, for instance, ministries of higher education try to follow research output in a academic terms, then it's much more difficult to have these type of shortcuts. But still, marketing is in many cases it's a certain part of the university marketing department. They have communication managers and whatever, and their duty is to market,
push,
and the problem is that many of our faculty members in many schools do not like the branding. They are happy with status and reputation. They are very much interested in status and reputation of their institution. But branding, even professors of marketing like me, we don't like branding in the case of business schools
So there's
universities.
There's a difference between branding and status reputation.
It's I would say that it's status and reputation. They are social evaluation constructs that are in the eyes of beholders. Then branding, at least we used to believe so in marketing, so that you can manage brands, you can measure, you can monetize. That's something manageable.
Right. So
But status and reputation, they emerge from your actual performance
practices. So
in long run.
Right. So there's a chance that the branding has some disconnection with the actual practices, and they manage to push.
Big chance for that.
I see. And do we have alternatives? If grandiose branding is something that is maybe we don't want to do that. If you see at universities, what is the alternative? The alternative.
What do you mean alternative?
Like, should we be more humble, or how can we kind of?
In Nordic countries, it's typical that those business schools that have a long tradition and also that have actual performance in research and probably in teaching as well, they don't advertise them.
Right.
It's usually newcomers or those schools that are not in the status hierarchy. So they use a lot of money for or invest in brands.
Right,
And this money is out of teaching and research. There are schools that can, especially for-profit universities or business schools, they can use more for branding and advertising than for faculty salaries.
Wow, I see.
30%, for instance.
Wow, even higher for the branding alone. Yeah, and I'm trying to connect to your next research or more recent research on ideological prisons. And if you see the business schools now, as you mentioned, there are several kind of ideologies. And maybe you can share a little bit how business schools are converging into that 3 or 4 ideologies.
I think that partly this branding is very much connected to our ideologies.
Okay.
And my argument has been that we have 3 major ideologies in business schools.
3 major.
Neoliberalism, managerialism, and shareholderism. And they are very different ideologies. But we have somehow we have managed to put them together, and I call that business school capitalism. But actually, internally in business schools, we teach and preach different ideologies in different disciplines. My argument is that neoliberalism is very typical for economics. Managerialism is for management and marketing.
Right.
And shareholderism is the ideology of finance. When I studied business in my first master degrees in early 80s in Finland, we didn't have those ideologies, at least that strong. Actually, our professors tried to talk about balancing of needs of stakeholders. They said that your job will be to navigate between needs and hopes and dreams of different stakeholders. And that I called stakeholderism.
Okay.
So it was a very typical way of Finnish or Nordic managers to think and business professors to teach in the 70s and early 80s. But that has changed. But as we have noticed, stakeholderism is back. And because of those 3 first mentioned ideologies, business schools have transformed into corporate-like organizations. And for instance, where branding and marketing is very natural. So these 3 ideologies, especially neoliberalism and probably managerialism, have also pushed us to act like corporations.
And you also argue in your paper that, also the case actually in our university and even our faculty, that sustainability now becomes emerging as the next ideology. And you said that there will be a chance of legitimacy if we jump into that as a bandwagon.
Yeah.
Do you think, would this be like the next bandwagon we all will jump into?
Think about our business of business schools. It has been the most successful sector in higher education.
Right.
And it has expanded hugely after Second World War. And my colleague argument in one paper was that we have been happy to ride on the waves of ideologies after the Second World War. And that's one explanation for our success, for good and bad. But now we can clearly see that next winning ideology is sustainability. Right. And are we riding on that wave as well? I see that we have done lots of greenwashing.
I see.
We have written our mission statements, and we have UK's these goals, and everything looks very nice. But in the same time, we teach and preach these three very controversial ideologies from the perspective of sustainability. So this will be a challenge to manage business schools if we want to align with this winning new ideology.
So maybe we
and we don't have any, as a humankind, we don't have any other chance. It's
is
at least in the long run.
Okay, that's the way to go. I mean, but a little bit zooming in on the prison itself. Why do you use the term prison? Are we trapped with that ideology? Can we break free from that, or does it inhibit us in some ways?
Yeah, it's I'm about 60, and I have a very long-term colleagues, good friends coming from different disciplines, and for instance, colleagues from finance. For them, the purpose of the company is maximizing shareholders' wealth, and that's it.
Okay.
Out of discussion, anything else. Everything else is some kind of humble bumble or whatever. And it shows that shareholderism is very strong ideology. Right. Shareholders first, and owners first. So it's nothing to do with stakeholderism.
Shareholders. Yeah. So.
And think about marketing professors. They say that customers are king.
Right.
And professors of economics, they believe in competition and that type of thing that create better world.
So once you're into it, it's difficult for you to unlearn that. Because
you cannot publish. It's very difficult to have a career without believing in those ideologies.
Different ideologies. I see. Interesting. So in a way, it gives us a pathway, but also it inhibits us to move away from that kind of mindset or worldview.
Not before my retirement.
Okay. I see. And zooming in also on sustainability itself, is this something new, or is this has been around from a long time ago actually, but now it's getting more traction?
Like many other phenomena in business, it has been a long time. I would say that stakeholderism and sustainability, the ideology of sustainability, are very close to each other.
Okay.
But now in early 80s, our professors did not emphasize future generation of stakeholders. But now it's just, I would say that it's now we see that it's as important as our current stakeholders. The future generations of stakeholders are important as well. So we have to think about them. And so I see that stakeholderism and sustainability have lots of overlappings.
Overlaps, to see, moving forward here, if sustainability is the way to go and we don't have any other kind of alternative, then what is the challenge for universities to embrace that as a new ideology? What is the challenge, do you think?
One of the point is that we don't like the concept of ideology in the universities, not to mention business schools. We don't teach ideologies. We teach knowledge and evidence-based whatever. And that's one problem. So that we should understand that big part of our teaching, curriculum, textbooks include ideological laden issues. And I'm not sure if people in the core of sustainability like to think that sustainability is ideology.
I see.
For me, it's ideology as neoliberalism. It's or managerialism, but it's a collection of beliefs and assumptions.
Right.
And of course, there is a part of that type of research-based arguments. I believe in sustainability issues quite a lot. So it's a part of belief, but part of But it has characteristics that are ideological as well.
I see. Yeah. Any, how to say, critique that you can give to our current, how to say, landscape of business school and regarding sustainability, for example, does it relate to the branding? Like, university want to be acknowledged as relevant by adopting sustainability as a language. So okay, this university is relevant because it's like the new buzzwords.
Yeah, it's I would say that in many cases it's a greenwashing.
I see.
And the key challenge is that our ethos is built around these three above-mentioned ideologies: neoliberalism, managerialism, and shareholderism, that are difficult to align with the ideas of sustainability. And how can we manage this type of departments or institutions that have very controversial ethos from the perspective of sustainability? I don't have any quick solutions for that. But I have noticed that colleagues from many disciplines have started to talk about sustainability, and their personal life can be very sustainable.
Okay.
But then they start teaching. They use
the three ideologies.
So it will be a big challenge for us at business schools.
Okay, Kimmo, thank you for the talk. To conclude, I think topics regarding business schools, ideologies, and grandiose branding is interrelated. It is also a critique to our current status as a university business schools. Are we doing what we say, or are we saying what we do? I think that's a big question. And we don't have any answer for that. I hope this is raising awareness that I think we should equally critical to look inwards rather than looking outwards too much on other companies. Let's start to see ourselves whether we have been doing what we say. Okay, Kimmo, thank you for the insightful talk.
Thank you. It was an honor.
I'll see you next time in the next episode. Thank you so much.